All right, picture this. You look down at your foot, or maybe your hand, and you spot it. A strange, rough little bump. And instantly you get that jolt of panic, right? Well, trust me, you are absolutely not alone. Most of us have been there. You might have accidentally brushed against someone else's wart, or maybe you're a parent who just noticed one on your kid's foot after swim class, and your brain immediately goes, oh no, is this going to spread everywhere? Today, we are taking away all that guesswork and anxiety. Welcome to This Explainer, your ultimate, science-backed guide to understanding, managing, and most importantly, preventing warts.
And then comes that immediate thought. Wait, did I literally just catch that from somewhere? Usually followed by, a pretty heavy dose of embarrassment. There's this huge unspoken stigma around warts, especially when we think about communal areas like the gym or the local swimming pool. People think others might avoid them or they just feel ashamed. But here is the honest truth. Warts are incredibly common and they are so much more misunderstood than most people realize. We are going to completely clear up that confusion today using actual verifiable science. No more guessing.
So, here's our roadmap for This Explainer. 1. What actually are warts? 2. How the virus spreads. 3. Busting some big myths. 4. A practical prevention checklist. And 5. Treatment options. Let's jump right in.
Okay, Section 1. What are warts really? Let's talk about the science of the bump.
So, warts are basically just small, rough growths caused by a really common viral infection, specifically the human papillomavirus, or HPV. Now hold on, before you panic, let me stop you right there. This is absolutely not the same type of HPV you hear about in serious medical discussions linked to cancer or vaccines. There are literally over 100 different types of this virus. The specific strains that cause these everyday skin warts, they are totally harmless and they only hang out strictly in the very top layer of your skin. Nothing scary, nothing crazy deep.
And because it's just a top layer skin thing, it usually pops up in places that see a ton of daily action. We're talking hands, fingers, and when they show up on the bottoms of your feet, we call them plantar warts. You might also spot them on the face, the neck, or right around your fingernails and toenails. Now, they might look a little different depending on where they decide to set up shop, but biologically speaking, it's all the exact same superficial viral infection.
Moving on to Section 2, how the virus actually spreads. Let's map out the transmission.
Now, the reality of how this spreads is actually kind of fascinating. The short answer to are they contagious is, well, yes, they are. But, and this is a big but, they do not spread quite as easily as people assume. The virus generally moves through direct skin-to-skin contact or by touching contaminated surfaces. Think sweaty gym floors, yoga mats, or damp towels. Oh, and sharing personal hygiene items like razors or nail clippers is a big one too. These are just everyday risks, especially in shared communal areas.
I love this analogy, especially for explaining the science simply to younger children. Think of your skin as a sealed brick wall. For the virus to actually get inside, it needs an open doorway. And that doorway? It's simply a break in the skin. We're talking about minor cuts, little scratches, or honestly, even just dry, cracked skin. Simply touching a wart once is actually really low risk because your intact skin acts as a shield. But if your skin barrier is broken, well, you're basically leaving the front door wide open for the virus to just walk right in.
And that vulnerability leads to something called auto-inoculation, which is basically a fancy medical term for self-spreading. Yep, you can actually spread a wart from one part of your own body to another. If you touch an existing wart and then, say, pick at it or drag a razor over it while shaving, you are literally picking up the virus and depositing it right into tiny microcuts next door. Understanding this step-by-step process is so crucial because it shows us exactly how our own daily habits can accidentally multiply the problem.
Which brings us to the high-risk hotspots. Moist, warm environments create the absolute perfect storm for transmission. Public showers, swimming pools, and school locker rooms, they are prime breeding grounds, particularly for those stubborn plantar warts on the feet. So if you're an athlete, or maybe a parent trying to protect your kids during swim lessons, or even a teacher trying to minimize risks in the school locker room, these shared communal spaces are where you really need to be the most vigilant.
All right, Section 3, busting common wart myths. Let's put facts over fear.
Let's tackle the biggest, and honestly, the most damaging myth right out of the gate. The idea that only dirty people get warts is entirely 100% false. It creates so much unnecessary emotional anxiety. The fact is, anyone can get a wart. Remember, it's literally just a common virus looking for a tiny scratch to enter. Having a wart has absolutely nothing to do with being dirty or having poor hygiene. It simply means you came into contact with a common bug when your skin had a tiny little opening. That's it.
Here's another one that seriously creeps people out. The myth that warts have these long, deep roots growing down into your body. Yeah, completely false. As we covered a minute ago, they grow strictly in the very top layer of the skin. This brilliantly simple fact should totally remove that whole creep factor. There are no scary alien roots burrowing down into your muscles or anything like that. It is entirely superficial.
And finally, we have the famous DIY internet cure, good old duct tape. The myth says duct tape is a guaranteed cure-all. The fact? Well, it might actually help a little bit by stripping away dead skin layers over time, but it is certainly not guaranteed, and it's definitely not a magical, foolproof medical cure. We gotta ground our expectations in reality before we start slapping hardware store supplies on our skin, you know?
Okay, let's get practical. Section 4. Your daily prevention checklist. Simple habits for healthy skin.
Look at how incredibly simple these steps are to implement, especially as daily habits for kids or for teachers keeping an eye out in locker rooms. First, keep your skin healthy and moisturized. Remember our doorway analogy? Moisturizing actually heals dry, cracked skin, which effectively closes and locks the door against the virus. Second, teach your kids to always wear flip-flops or sandals in public showers and school locker rooms. That acts as a literal physical shield between your feet and the floor. And third, if you or your child already has an open cut or an existing wart, promptly cover it with a bandage. It's the easiest way to keep from spreading it to surfaces or to other parts of your own body.
But at the same time, we've got to stop self-sabotaging. Preventing auto-inoculation really means breaking a few bad habits. First off, avoid biting your nails. Doing that creates perfect little open wounds right where warts absolutely love to grow. Stop picking at dry skin or in existing bumps you might have. And please, never share personal hygiene items, things like towels, razors, or nail clippers. Doing that is basically giving the virus a VIP pass right past all your other defenses.
Which leads us to Section 5, Treatment and Medical Care. Safe solutions.
So, what if a wart pops up despite your absolute best efforts? First rule, don't panic. Honestly, most actually just vanish on their own over time, as your immune system naturally fights off the virus. But if they overstay their welcome, you do have options. Let's compare them quickly. For DIY and over-the-counter care, products containing salicylic acid are pretty much the gold standard. They slowly, safely peel away the infected skin. But if you want a faster or maybe a more robust approach, professional medical care offers some really excellent tools. A doctor can use cryotherapy, which is essentially freezing the wart off, laser therapy, or even minor surgical removal. You have plenty of totally legitimate tools at your disposal.
However, and I literally cannot emphasize this enough, please listen to this warning. Never, ever try to cut or burn a wart yourself at home. Seriously, DIY surgery is a terrible idea. Not only is it going to be super painful and prone to infection, but you are creating a massive open wound that will almost certainly backfire and spread the virus even further across your skin. Leave the surgery to the professionals, folks.
So, when should you skip the pharmacy aisle and head straight to the doctor's office? Well, here is a definitive list. You definitely need to consult a professional if the wart is actively painful, if you notice it's spreading really quickly across your body, or if it bleeds or drastically changes its appearance. Also, and this is absolutely critical, if you have diabetes or a compromised immune system, do not try treating it at home. In those specific cases, you need a professional eye on it right away to prevent any serious complications.
And that brings us to our conclusion. Awareness, not fear.
We've covered the biology, how it spreads, the myths, and the treatments. And really, the overarching theme of this whole explainer is just that, basic awareness, not fear. Yes, warts are contagious, but they are incredibly manageable and highly, highly preventable. You do not need to be terrified of the gym or the local swimming pool. You just need to keep that skin barrier healthy and moisturized, cover up your minor cuts with a bandage, and always remember to pack those shower sandals. So the real question is, are you and your family ready for flip-flop season? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Start applying these simple daily hygiene habits today. Maybe share this knowledge with someone who still believes those old creepy root myths, and I will see you next time.